Ian, we are ready.
Excellent. Then welcome, everybody on this meeting. It's a pleasure to be here with you all. My name is Ian. I'll be the timekeeper for this round, and also welcome to everyone joining us from YouTube, from all around the world, as this final should be seen by everyone, as it's going to be an amazing debate, I'm pretty sure. So first of all, let me congratulate our main characters, our protagonists today, both teams that made it all the way to the national final. Congratulations to both of the teams. Congratulations, Colegio Manuel Belgrano. Congratulations to Colegio St. Catherine's Belgrano. Congratulations. I can't stretch this enough. You've made it all the way. You're here, and you deserve a big round of applause. So let me also introduce our amazing and brilliant panel of international judges. So we have the pleasure of having 5 judges with international experience from all around the world, located in different countries. So let me introduce them one by one. So we got Gabriel Dia, located in Brazil. Thank you very much, Gabriel, for being here with us today. Then we've got Nojuna Macharia, located in Kenya, Nairobi. Thank you for being here, for being with us here today. Then we got Paula Djakovic, located in Zagreb, Croatia. Thank you, Paula. Then we got Christian from Singapore, located in Hong Kong. Hello, Chris. And then we got Paz Casinelli from Argentina, located in the US. Thank you, Paz. So with no further ado, because debaters are excited, I am excited, the judges are excited, we're all excited for this debate to start and see what these debaters have prepared for us. Let's start by announcing the motion. So the motion that we have on the House today is, this House believes that media should not show images of police brutality. On team government, we've got Colegio Manuel Belgrano. On team opposition, we've got Colegio St. Catherine's Mornings. So I'll be the timekeeper for this round, as I said before. I'll be clapping on minute 1 and then clapping on minute 7 to indicate beginning and end of protected time, and then I'll be announcing the final time of the speech. So with no further ado, let's start with the first speech of this round. We invite the first speaker of team government, Anna Nussbaumer, if that's correct, I hope so, to deliver their speech. Please welcome her here.
Well, content is fire, media is gasoline. Good morning, honorable members of the House, team opposition, judges, and our audience. Let me remind you the motion before us today. This House believes that the media should not show images of police brutality. We define the media as the recently set up social media applications, leaving aside newspaper or TV coverage. As for images of police brutality, they are showcasing of unlawful and biased use of force, with a violation of human rights being socially condemned. Team proposition will prove today that showing this practice being widespread on social media only brings even more worse consequences. As the first speaker of team proposition, I'll be developing our first 2 arguments, fighting violence with even more violence and influence over younger audiences. And our third speaker will continue our case, developing our third argument, distraction and hatred. So let me start with our first argument, fighting violence with even more violence. While many might believe that showing police brutality in the media would be useful, no, thank you, would be useful for certain situations, actually, nothing could be further from the truth. If media shows images of police brutality in the attempt of protecting citizens from it, they are just setting the so-called culture of fear. Culture of fear is the concept that people may incite fear in the general public to achieve political or workplace goals through emotional bias. By showing police brutality, policemen and women violating the citizens' human rights, the only achievement media will get is causing a psychological damage to the whole population. So you see, we are fighting fire with even more fire.
On that point?
Trying to show, no, thank you. Trying to show these actions is nothing more than a failed attempt. This causes an incredible psychological manipulation. Should our society be ruled by this fear? Absolutely not. Yeah, accepted.
don't you think that it's not psychological damage, but just exposing the truth of police brutality to show these images to the public is not culture of fear, just them being informed of the abuse of power by law enforcement?
I get your point, but no, I really do not think that. And Team Proposition is stating why we do not think that that's real. We think that showing all this police brutality, showing the ones who would protect society, being against them and violating their human rights, only imposes this culture of fear, making people complete the rules and the law just because they're scared. So why let this social media show police brutality when the correct place to do it are newspapers or TV news, not social media where everyone can access just for pure entertainment?
On that point.
No, thank you. But isn't there a chance for this to work? If police brutality is showed in social media, maybe it would work. But well, no, it doesn't. In the United States, for example, alone 5,000 people were killed in the last 4 years. In these last 4 years, social applications rose to fame. So I guess you can see the relation, where a lot of people try to stop violence. Yes, let me finish my point and I'll take it. Whereas a lot of people try to stop violence with the use of social media, this only worsens the situation. Yeah, I accept your point.
Are you saying that the rise of social media is only due to the fact by the rise of killings in the United States? And if so, why would that be bad?
No, what I'm saying is that the rise of violence is caused by the rise of violence being shown in social media and the rise of the use of social media by audiences from all ages. Everywhere social media is being used more and more. And if we show violence there, a lot of people will have it right in front of their eyes. So it's being normalized, something that shouldn't be normalized at all costs. It's being normalized in social media, something that everyone uses a lot.
On that point.
No, thank you. I'm still answering another point. So yeah, what I'm saying is that the rise of violence is completely associated with the rise of showing violence in social media. So people get used to seeing all these cases, people fighting each other on the streets or any other public places. So this turns into a kind of normal situation, as I said before. No, thank you. It's a normal situation to see or to participate in. So we're bringing even more evidence that fighting this violence with even more violence is not the solution at all. Culture of fear, more violence, scared citizens. That's what's generated when social media shares explicit images of police brutality. Citizens are not benefited at all, as they have seen pictures of videos or violent situations being held by the ones who should, in fact, protect them. Everyone will have to toe the line, not because of the sense of responsibility, but because the strong fear, pressure, worries, and stress they will have as long as they see images of police brutality everywhere. And now let me continue our case with our second argument, influencing younger audiences into the bad direction. In the same vein, moving to our second argument, younger audiences. Nowadays, more and more young people are using social media. Do you really think that they should behold these situations? What would be teaching them, showing them as an example? As we all know, children tend to imitate what they see in their everyday situations. Social media are imposing, no, thank you. Social media are imposing and influencing younger audiences, the most vulnerable. 85% of people using social media are underage people, for example, children and teenagers. So they are learning things every day from absolutely everything they see. According to a research made by the Children's Psychological Organization in the US, children love to imitate other people's actions, even if that person is a stranger to them. At this age, imitation is another point. No, thank you. It also provides a social, emotional connection between infants and others. And when they imitate someone, they feel part of a community. But I guess that we cannot perfectly understand the problem here. They will be feeling part of a violent community. They will be normalizing something that should in all cases not happen, and even less be normalized by children, the ones who will be working and forming our future society. This will also will make them feel a part of a violent community, as I already said before, not respecting others and feeling the power over other people too. So to round it all up, social media is not the place, it's not the way of solving this problem. In fact, as team proposition has proved in our first two arguments, even more and more issues are brought up when social media shows these kinds of content. From psychological damage to the whole society, the imposition of the culture of fear, teaching the younger audiences with violent content and situations and turning them into normal things, social media is just exacerbating the issue. If the media shows images of police brutality, they are worsening the situation. And for all this reason, team proposition strongly believes that today's motion should and will fall. Thank you very much.
We thank the speaker for the speech. The final time was 7 minutes, 52 seconds. We now call on the first speaker from the side of the opposition, Isabel Gancian, to deliver the speech. Please welcome.
Can you hear me correctly? Great, so I'll start. If we use images for advertisement, why shouldn't we use them to expose police brutality? Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Let me remind you that the motion before us today is this House believes that media should not show images of police brutality. Today we are debating this because over the last couple of years, throughout various countries, the issue of police brutality has been very present in the media. In Argentina, these last couple of weeks, the United States, Hong Kong, South Africa, etc. It is a very pressing issue that has received a lot of media coverage because it has been exposed, its severity has been exposed over the last couple of years. Throughout this debate, team opposition will stand for three main premises. First of all, that police brutality images are more powerful and engaging than text. Second of all, that they create enough motivation, which will lead to political change. And third of all, that being censored will have a negative impact on minorities already being affected by police brutality. We accept the definitions provided by the proposition team. However, we would like to clarify that media also covers traditional media like newspapers and news outlets, given that it is a place where information is shared. However, we will consider social media as well as a valid form of media. Throughout this case, we will develop in three main arguments. The first one being moving the individual, where we will be talking about the impact of images in people. Second of all, change the world, where we will talk about the impact images have on political change. And third of all, the blind eye, where we will be discussing censorship. But to start off, I would refute two main points provided by the proposition team. The first one being fighting violence with violence. From their side of the house, we hear that this will increase the culture of fear, that violence is being fought with violence, and that police brutality is not real, and that media showing images that ignite this culture of fear of a non-existent threat that is police brutality. First of all, we question, no, thank you. We question this. Is really social media going to ignite a culture of fear, or is it exposing the truth of police brutality? It is exposing the truth of police brutality. It is not inciting fear on the population. It's a tool being used by people to expose abuse of power by law enforcement officials. Second of all, it does not exist. No, thank you. It is a very present issue. Bringing their example of the USA, where social media usage has a correlation between the rise of violence, that is not true. But in fact, it is not only not correlated, but it also contradicts themselves in the fact that the USA has been seeing police officers being sent to jail thanks to social media. There are videos of police brutality being exposed, sent them to jail because of public pressure. Accepted.
And again, what happened were protests and more killings and more shootings and businesses having to close down because
I understand your point, but that is not a correlation with social media necessarily. The USA has a problem with violence for multiple reasons that social media is not one of them. Social media, in fact, has been solving the issue of police brutality, which is what we're trying to look for. Moving on to their second point of reputation, young audiences. First of all, from their side of the house, we hear that social media is dominated by young audiences and that they tend to imitate the behavior they see online. First of all, we question again, once more. Social media is a place nowadays used by most people, in fact, even by law enforcement themselves. Therefore, there can be filters that, according to age, we see that you can see certain content depending on your age. However, the media should not be banned from these platforms because there are children present. That is what the proposition is proposing, and that is simply not an answer. Second of all, if we move to traditional media outlets that we believe fit the definition in the motion. Newspapers have sections. A child will not read the newspaper and see these images. And second of all, news outlets no, thank you. News outlets have different timings where they show different images. Therefore, children are not exposed to them. And third of all, when they say imitate, are children really going to imitate police brutality, or they're going to be aware of this issue and want to solve it in the future once they grow up? No, thank you. Young audiences are not necessarily exposed to this media, and even if they were, it can be regulated, and even if they were, they do not necessarily have a negative impact, and they will not imitate this behavior. They will be outraged by it and fight it in the future. Now we'll move on to my first argument, moving individual. In the first layer of analysis, we will see how people respond better to images, especially when it comes to in the era of social media, where we see images every day. More people see images than read the newspaper every day. Exposing these images of police brutality will enable people that do not necessarily experience this issue to connect with people that do. No, thank you. An example of this is the protest in Hong Kong last year in regards their independence. In Argentina, we are not connected to people in Hong Kong. No, thank you, necessarily. However, the images that we got from those protests were of people being shot in the eye for expressing their rights and their freedom of speech. Those images had an impact on us, and the world and international community became aware of these protests and the police brutality that they entailed, and we decided to unite and condemn that behavior and to give Hong Kong the possibility of discussing their independence.
Point of information.
China. No, thank you. Images in social media especially allowed this, because allowed protesters, everyday protesters, to expose this police brutality. Therefore, we see how this is beneficial, because by banning images and by banning images from media, we will see a decrease in the amount of people that know about certain issues and the amount of people that are connected to issues that not necessarily affect them. Now, in the second layer of analysis, we'll see how it creates social condemning for police officers. It is very important that people see officers, because text cannot always prove that someone has done something incorrectly. People need to see the abuse of power, especially in media, because that would allow them to condemn them in their everyday lives. They will see them and they will know that that police officer was using unlawful force on an individual, and they will be socially condemned. And that is what we need in order to hold them accountable. An example, again, is Hong Kong. If we did not see those images, would we be aware of the police brutality in Hong Kong? Not necessarily. Now we have faces, we have instances, we have the vivid images in our heads that allow us to hold them accountable. Now, moving to our second argument, which is changing the world. Images allow for people to have symbols of movements. We see how a certain image becomes the unification of a whole political movement, and it reduces complex issues into things people can identify and support in their everyday lives. An example of this is George Floyd. No, thank you. The image of him being killed by police officers is vivid in everybody's heads, and that image became the face of the Black Lives Matter movement. But it was not only about him. No, thank you. His face was a symbol of fighting against police brutality, and his face was just the bridge we needed to discuss the issue of police brutality in the United States. Therefore, it is important that movements have these symbols in order to popularize them. If we do, as the proposition says, of not allowing media to show images of police brutality, we will be losing a key tool towards fighting police brutality, which is unifying political movements that go against police brutality. Now, in the second layer of analysis, we see political change. Images create political pressure. We know the face of the officer that killed George Floyd. This caused people to take action and to put political pressure on candidates in order for them to hold him accountable. And now what do we see? He is in jail. He has been charged with his murder for first-degree murder, thanks to the image. Without the image, we wouldn't have gotten this. This shows the importance of images in creating political change, which is necessary when we're talking about such a pressing issue such as police brutality. Therefore, it is important that we do not ban images of police brutality in media, because it allows us to create political change. It is something we desperately need, and the proposition has not acknowledged when talking about police brutality. Therefore, we have proven that it allows symbols to be created to unify movements, and it allows movements to create political pressure and change. Because from the opposition team, we believe that one image is worth 1,000 words, which is just enough to fight this pressing issue.
Thank you very much. The time was 8 minutes, 16 seconds. We now call on the second speaker from the side of the proposition to deliver their speech. Nicanor Ojagi, please welcome them.
Thank you. Content is fire, but social media is gasoline. Good morning, everybody. Before I continue with my arguments, I would like to remind you the motion before us today. This House believes that the media should not show images of police brutality. Let us clarify that the team proposition divides the media within social media applications. I would like to start rebutting and clarifying some things mentioned by the opposition. First of all, I would like to start with this point. Showing images of death, riots, overruling, and violation of human rights, is that exposure? Is that raising awareness? Or is that deep-seated fear? Is that controlling the minds of people? Is that influencing them to believe that police are bad, that death is everywhere to be seen? Are we stating here fear culture? Yes, we are. This is not raising awareness. By showing death, we are not raising awareness. This is not the case. This is not where to do so. They are explicit images of death.
On that point.
No, thank you. They're explicit images of death and blood, which do not raise awareness, but instill fear. Secondly, we stated that social media exacerbates the situation. But why? Because it influences us to, again, be scared and therefore act in a certain way. As it was mentioned by my first speaker, the United States Children's Psychological Institute proved that this young audience are easily gullible and influenced and might commit the same mistakes that we are doing right now. They are the future generations. They are the future of society.
On that point.
Yes, please.
And don't you think that the young generation should be exposed to the truth of police brutality to a certain extent in order to fight against it? Or what is the proposition team scared of?
Certainly, we believe that awareness should be raised, but not by showing explicit images of police brutality. This is not the way to do so. By showing death, we are not raising awareness. We are not helping children and all the society. We are just instilling fear. Then I would like to talk about how the opposition mentioned that police brutality being showcased creates symbols and movements, and this is worth 1,000 words. That's one image of violation of human rights. Is that worth more than 1,000 words? Yes, it is, but words of fear, words of being scared, petrified, people not going to the streets, people being stressed, people having anxiety, people being depressed. As you said, yes, thank you, I'd accept it.
Is Team Proposition aware that this image is reality? It's what's actually happening. So how would Team Proposition expect for this media coverage to be exposed if it's not by it showcasing reality?
I get your point, but we're not discussing of how to showcase this, but about not showcasing this police brutality in the media. We would provide information, but not show images. Again, this is not what's being discussed. You told us about being identified with these movements. Again, proves our point that people being identified might be scared, might suffer from mental health issues, which were accounted by the Psychological Institute. And by holding accountable every policeman, we're just instilling, again, a hatred for policemen, and you'll see that in our third argument. I'll now continue with our third argument. We'll divide it into two layers of analysis. First and foremost, during 2021 alone, 80% of users of social media apps stated having encountered fake news. But what is this phenomenon known as fake news, you may ask? Well, it is widespread false information. It is a social deception to trick people into believing falsely claimed statements. In our world, no thank you. There's no one capable of filtering the influx of content being poured into social media. Thus, the supposed holy grail of communication and public awareness is in no way, shape, or form capable of verifying each and every post made. For instance, let us broach this. Yes, I'll take it.
And why is that exclusive to images?
Because the motion we're discussing today says images of police brutality. Thus, for instance, let us broach the subject of the movement Black Lives Matter. This movement, as supposedly helpful as it was riddled with fake news and purported claims about police officers being, and I quote, pigs. As you can appreciate, media coverage brought not only even more destruction with riots, with protests, with businesses being utterly destroyed, and also a huge disregard for the people whose job is to protect us. What could have otherwise been a full functioning domain in the news cycle has been reduced to the least reliable, noteworthy, or accurate means of social media spreading.
On that point,
yes, I'll take it.
Are you saying then that when the police officer was sent to jail, that was something bad outcome of fake news and social media, right? I mean,
of course not. And what I'm saying is that we do not know if that policeman was the one who killed George Floyd, or it is just, again, more corruption, political corruption, as you so claimed before. Because as mentioned by my first speaker, spreading police brutality, something which each and every citizen is afraid of, only produces a state of fear, installing fear culture and a psychological mayhem. This house believes that the media should not show images of police brutality, as it only brings out mental health issues, produces havoc, and exacerbates our already complicated situation. Again, we have proved that social media is not the place to show these human rights violations because of, one, younger audiences, two, the chaos it produces, and three, that it disregards policemen going as far as being hatred. To continue to support the showcasing of police brutality scenarios online will only come at the expense of the most vulnerable, making the affected minorities terrified about the ones who are there to help, police. This brings me neatly to my second layer. I'll take it.
Is the team opposition stating that the policemen that are actually carrying out police brutality in many cases, for example, in the US, are actually there to protect minorities when there are cases and vast examples about actually murders? And
we never said that. We never said that. We just say that police have a job and we are disregarding that because of one mistake, of one case that happened or one that happened secluded from all the others. We are denouncing the whole force for just one or two shootings. As you can appreciate, there has been a paradigm shift towards loading these figures instead of voting their justice powers.
On that point.
Not long ago, no, thank you. Not long ago, police were highly regarded in so much as they helped citizens on a daily basis, protecting them and designing a safe space. However, things have changed. Policemen have made mistakes, and now we hold the entire forces, as I already claimed, accountable. Team opposition, don't you see how we have gone as far as to disregard these workers? Don't you see that social media coverage has worsened our situation? Team proposition wants to put a stop to the unjustified hate to every policeman and woman out there. Team proposition wants to stop influencing people to commit the same mistakes over and over again. Team proposition wants a change, an improved situation, and less deaths. Why continue to encourage police brutality online when we should not show the images in the first place? Team proposition is against police brutality, and social media only spreads the issue even further. John F. Kennedy once wisely said, "The rights of every man are diminished when the rights of one man are threatened." Therefore, team opposition, why show that one life in the first place? To install fear, chaos, and influence others? To get stuck in the same cycle and repeat our same mistakes in the next generations? We think not. Thank you very much. This is why the motion should fall. And as you can see, we have proven that social media has a negative impact when it comes to police brutality.
Thank you very much. The time is 8 minutes, 7 seconds. We now call on the second speaker from the side of the opposition, Felix Femerel, to deliver their speech. Please welcome them.
Am I audible?
Yes.
Perfect. From proposition side of the house, we hear this idea that police brutality isn't a systematic oppression. And I quote, "There were one or two shootings regarding racial oppression." I mean, that clearly falls in line with their logic because they're in favor of censorship and other kinds of discrimination. So at least they're oppressive and authoritarian, but they're logical, right? So let me go back to the three premises that team opposition stands for. First of all, that images are much more powerful and engaging than texts. Second, that it creates enough and enough motivation to create political pressure, therefore political change. And third, that it being uncensored will like excavate to more oppression to minorities. I will do three main things in my speech. First, I will refute the points proposed by team proposition and three main points of refutation. First, violence. Second, younger audience. And third, fake news. Then I will make a short reconstruction of what we have already proved at the moment. And third, I'm going to present our third argument called the blind eye. But let me start with a clarification. Traditional media is part of media. It says it in the name. Traditional media are part of communication medias because they share information about it. So moving on to the first point of refutation, violence. From their side house, we hear this idea of they're trying to set a culture of fear. They're trying to push the idea that we should go back to traditional media, which is it's a contradiction from their part of the house because this culture of fear, which I'm going to refute, could still be created through traditional means. And that situations are normalized and that is a bad thing. So let me refute it in three main answers. First of all, it's not a culture of fear. It's a reality. It's not a misinterpretation. It's not fake news. Police systematic brutality, no thank you, is something real. It's not a culture of fear. It's people being aware of their surroundings. It's people being ready for what actually the world is. Second, it does raise awareness, not like the second speaker said, it actually does raise awareness because if we show what actually happens, if we have to show this explicit images, as the second speaker said, then we're showing what actually is, what the reality of the situation is, and we prefer to do that because the people are much more able to be prepared. No, thank you. Are able to be conscious about what is happening, and they can lead to political change. And third, we're not normalizing the situation. If we show people, and as I said, explicit image of people being killed in the streets and however they want to paint it, this is not something that people is normalizing. This is something that people take as something serious, and we can see this in the protests of Black Lives Matter. People didn't normalize George Floyd being killed. Thousands and millions went into the streets, protests, and then we created a political change. In a moment, yes.
But you see, that in the United States, there were more killings. Breonna Taylor, for example, who happened after George Floyd. So where
I understand perfectly your point, but still, Breonna Taylor had no pictures and was not the face of the image and created less political change. George Floyd had images, created political change, had more impact. What do we prefer? Images. Moving on to a second point of refutation, younger audiences. From their side of the house, we hear the idea that younger children will be psychologically affected and that they will copy this kind of attitudes. What do we answer to this? Three main things. First of all, who can access police brutality information? It's true, there are young people in social media, there are young people in even traditional media. Are they accessing police brutality? This is not true. Young people tend to access content for young people. They don't access serious issues such as political issues, especially in the ages they're talking about, which go around 4 to 10 years. Those kind of kids don't access police brutality media, and therefore the premise of their argument falls. No, thank you. Second, their logic was they will see a person being killed, therefore they will kill a colored person in the street. That was their logic. Do we see how this is not coherent? People have kind of a moral compass. People know what something is wrong, and killing people in the streets is clearly wrong. Therefore, they will not copy it. And third, even if they see this, and even if they had some kind of psychological issue, we still prefer to solve this massive systemic oppressive system that is currently in many countries through police brutality. We prefer to solve the problem. And third, fake news. We hear this idea that fake news are bad, fake news are able to control people, fake news are the worst thing that happens. Three main answers. First of all, this is not exclusive to images. This could be happen through text. This can happen through different form of media. And they answer, okay, this is not what we're discussing. Okay, perfect. We're not discussing that. But just to note, if team proposition is willing not to talk about any issue, meaning they're willing not to share any information about anything in favor of information. News. No, thank you. They're willing for nobody to be aware of police brutality, therefore not solving the situation, just because of fake news. Second, through images, we have less fake information than text. Why? Because images are facts. Images are something that everybody can verify, and therefore we have less fake news through images. And third, even if we have this chance of fake news, which of course there is, we're not denying that there's a chance of fake news, but we're just telling it's minimal. If there's a chance of fake news, we still prefer to solve systemic oppression. We prefer for minorities to feel included. We prefer police brutality to end. Therefore, we're still in favor of what we're saying. So let me start with a reconstruction. In the first argument, we talked about how the individual is moved and how that creates a positive impact. And second, in our second argument, we talk about how political change, actual political change, something they completely ignored, is caused because of images. Now let me start with the third argument, the blind eye, which overall will prove that the measure of censorship is wrong and worse in political cases such as police brutality, because it can lead to political abuse. Two layers of analysis. First, censorship, and second, political abuse. Starting with censorship. Denying the media to share any kind of information they want and share photos they want is a limitation to the freedom of speech. This is wrong in any kind of sense. Let me tell you, it's a threefold reason. First, it goes against individuals. The people that work in the media and the people that receive that kind of information is violated their basic human rights, which is freedom of speech. Team proposition is in favor of violating human rights. Second, it goes against institutions. No, thank you. The whole purpose of media outlets is for them to be able to share information, therefore to be able to share their opinions. And by doing this, you're censoring them. You're going against their opinion. And third, it's an abuse of power from part of the states who let the states censor what we should do and what not. No, thank you. So as a premise, all censorship is wrong. But let me tell you in a second layer of analysis, why in political cases it is worse. In political cases, such as the one we're discussing, which is police brutality, it's especially wrong because limiting the image and censoring the media is an invitation for countries with strong armies and countries with strong polices to continue to do so, to continue to oppress minorities with this systemic form of oppression. If there's no image, they know that they can get away with it. They know that whatever they do, people will not find them because out of time, people know that this is not correct. So they can lead to even more oppression for minorities of part of the police brutality. So moving on to going back to our third stance, which is that minorities will be further oppressed. This still goes to our side. For example, in Myanmar, there's a regulation of media and images, and there have been massive massacres towards different ethnicities. Now, people don't know about it. Even though they were text newspapers, people don't know about it because there were no images. There were nothing that was widely spread. Why? Because there were no images. So what have we proven? That image prohibition is censorship. That is automatically wrong. As a premise, that is automatically wrong. But especially in political cases, such as the one that we're discussing, because it allows and it's an invitation for countries with strong policies to continue with this oppression of the systemic oppression of power, which we're against. So except team proposition is in favor of systemic oppression and is in favor of oppressing different minorities, this debate is going to our side of the house. So let me remind you once again, one image is worth 1,000 words, which is just enough to put a light on this pressing issue. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Speaker, the time was 8 minutes, 17 seconds. We would now like to invite the third speaker from the side of the proposition, Matías Voland, to deliver their speech. Please welcome them.
Good afternoon, honorable judges and fellow debaters. Content is fire, social media is gasoline. Well, in order to continue my speech, I'd like to mention an essential thing about the debate, which is the burden of proof mentioned by the opposition. The three burden of proof given by them were the first one, that images are powerful. Well, I should admit that they are powerful, but in the wrong way. They are they are harming people. First of all, they made more violence and also provokes fear, as it was said in our first argument. But you're not taking into account the damage that it could produce or provoke a simple image. I mean, the mental health given in the first speech, such as anxiety or maybe, I don't know, depression or more things. Also, of course, talking about cultural fear. Now, also another thing that provokes and produces images is that those images could be used to cut people, of course, but it cannot be shown by the public because it could harm those people. And this is a work that maybe the police should make, not us. We are not the ones who decide if someone has to go to jail or not. And another thing that it could be that could happen is that maybe, well, as in the case of George Floyd, showing the face of the policeman, but not showing the brutality and the violence in the video, as it was mentioned
On that
during
point.
this debate. No, thank you. Now moving on to the second burden of proof mentioned by the opposition, was talking about political pressure.
On that point.
This, no, thank you. Political pressure which wasn't made because people are still dying. They mentioned the case of George Floyd. We want to say that George Floyd provoked violence and more violence, provoked chaos, and people went out and break things, which isn't the way of solving the things. Because of the video, people went to the house of the of every police. No, thank you. Of the policeman and make their lives impossible. And also, if the opposition like to talk about the minorities, let's talk about the minorities. What about those policemen which has nothing to do with this and were affected because of this case
On that
of George
point.
Floyd? No, thank you. It ruined their lives. The police officers which has nothing to do with this case were affected.
On that point.
And made, no, thank you, and made this false idea of police officers, which I'm going to talk and repeat that was mentioned by the third, in our third argument. And moving on to the third burden of proof, which was talking about the minorities, these minorities I was talking about, which indeed suffer
On that point.
watching those deaths. No, thank you. I mean, as Adam Smith said, you cannot publish something that could damage others. Our freedom ends when we start against the freedom of other people. That's damages that produces is huge. We cannot take it as it was less important. Now, I'd like to say that those three burden of proof mentioned by the opposition were proven because of the things I've mentioned recently.
On that point.
Now, no, thank you. Now, moving on to the making a summary of which were the arguments presented by the proposition. First of all, talking about fear, culture of fear. This made psychological damage, as we mentioned before, and people won't want to go out from their houses. It's not a way of living. It isn't normal. In which type of world are we living when we are being controlled by people? Because of a video, we won't want to go outside. Accept it.
Are you saying, going back to your previous point, that the law enforcement sector is a minority, is an ethnic minority?
We are talking about minorities in all aspects. We also have to take into account the policemen. The policemen, which, of course, some of them could make harm, and it isn't right what they are doing. But we're also not talking about those who may have nothing to do and being affected too, because they made a false idea of what they are. Also, as I was saying, it produces, no, thank you. It produces mental health, anxiety, stress because of the violence promoted, and also maybe depression of some people that may identify with the person who is suffering. People are being manipulated to the toe of the line. If not, they will pay the consequences they see online, even losing their lives. Now, moving on to the second argument, which was presented by the proposition, is talking about young people, which are being manipulated. They influence their thoughts. It's widely known that children copy what they see and believe everything they watch. That's why it's not the way of informing. What we are discussing here is not if it's okay informing or if it's not. What we are discussing here is that images and showing videos, it's not the way of fighting this problem. 84% of the whole people who is using social media applications are children, and these children are the ones who are being influenced by this content, and those people copying are copying what they shouldn't, and these people who are copying are our future, and now we will have fear of our future. Now, moving on to the third argument, which was presented by the proposition, is talking about fake news. That this is regarding policemen and policewomen. Makes everyone believe a wrong idea of what policemen and policewomen are. Not only young people, as it was said before. I mean, imagine a situation where a policeman shoot a person, something that has nothing to do. A young people could think, a young person, or not only young, people could believe like two sides. The first one will be maybe saying that they think shooting is okay because they see as an example to follow the policeman, or maybe believing that police is corrupt, which isn't okay, none of those. That's why to avoid going to these cases, we would like to say that images should be avoided from media. And also is installing hatred to them, hatred to people that has nothing to do. See how we end up as a society. Time before we say like policeman was an example to follow. People who was young wanted to be a policeman. Right now, it isn't anymore. And that's why we believe this motion should stand. Thank you.
Thank you very much. The time was 8 minutes, 17 seconds. We now call on the third speaker from the side of the opposition, Nicolás Prieto, to deliver their speech. Please welcome them.
Can everyone hear me? The world deserves to know the truth, to know reality, because that will be the only way to make actual progress on these systematical issues. Good afternoon, members of the House. Let me remind you once again, the motion first today is this House believes the media should not show images of police brutality. So throughout this debate, Team Opposition was able to stand by and further argumentate three main premises, which I'll repeat now. That police brutality images, first of all, are much more powerful and engaging than texts. In second place, that they create enough motivation to create political pressure, thus achieving political change. And third place, that these police brutality images being censored will exacerbate the oppression to minorities. So throughout my speech, I will first of all refute the team proposition points, and then I will crystallize this debate by providing three main points of clash, which are first of all political impact, second of all first of all personal impact, second of all political change, and third of all censorship. So I'll start with that first point of clash, political impact, and within it I will refute many points of team proposition. So team proposition started with the idea that photos, that pictures or images set a culture of fear throughout an emotion of bias. And it's like the only achievement that they make is this psychological fire, to which we have two main things to say. First of all, photos and images show reality. If they are taken and they showcase an event of police brutality, no thank you, then they are actually showing what is going on. So therefore, the only achievement they will make is not only the psychological fire, but also showcasing the reality. And in second place, fear will still be created, as there will be many different articles, like for example in the journals, in the TV, that will still engage in this issue. And also team proposition completely ignored that in the within the past 2 years, many images and things were shown. So therefore, if there is such alleged fear, then it's already there. So stopping the images will only create more censorship, which is something that I will discuss further, but still the fear will not magically disappear because there will still be other coverage, but that will not be as influential as images, and that is why images should stay. Then Team Proposition also brought that, no thank you, then Team Proposition also brought that things should be shown in newspapers, in TV, not in social media. But once again, let me remind you that the first speaker of my team of the House mentioned that the definition of media is not only social media, but all media coverages, and thus, of course, images will appear in TV and in articles. Yes, I accept your point.
However, don't you think that social media is the most prominent one and therefore the only relevant to today's motion?
Not at all, because even though social media has an impact, then there also will be other sources such as TV and articles which will have an involvement on the case. So thus, prohibiting the involvement of images will not only harm the movement as a whole, but also will reduce its coverage in all media sources. Then Team Proposition, within this point of clash, told that it will create a fear towards policemen, which are allegedly a minority now. First of all, let me remind you that policemen are not a minority; they are the oppressors here, not the victims. And in second place, the issue is already there. There are already murders all around the globe. No, thank you. So the fear is completely justifiable. And then they also mentioned how young people will imitate this action of violence. That was a quote from the first speaker of Team Proposition, and which we have three main things to say. First of all, young people will not become a policeman to oppress. They are completely diminishing these young people's opinions. They are saying that they will just start committing violence because of what they see in the media, which is completely outrageous. And in second place, let me remind you once again that media coverage tries to eliminate this issue. It shows it from a different perspective. It does not try to engage and reinforce it and make it an example to be, because it shows the bad aspects. It shows it as if it was a bad thing. And third of all, that young people have morals. Team Proposition is completely ignoring this side of young people, and it's completely diminishing them. No, thank you. So now I'll move on to the second point of clash: political change. In this case, Team Proposition mentioned how images hold accountable all policemen by just 1 or 2 shootings that happened last year, to which I would like to give a couple statistics. First of all, last year in the US alone, 915 people were killed because of police brutality. This was something completely ignored by Team Proposition, and it seemed as if they were
point of information
diminishing this pressing issue. No, thank you. And in second place, once again, images show the truth. If some policemen did something, then they should be held accountable to. And yes, there might be other policemen. No, thank you. There might be other policemen that do not commit these things, but still, the society as a whole has to be informed about this issue and has to be aware of what could happen, because this is systematical. It's not just 1 or 2 murders. And well, then they also mentioned how young people and the social media users are not accountable for putting these policemen in jail. Yet, however, many cases, such as some that they mentioned, the Floyd case, the Taylor case, were solved because of all this media coverage and because of all of this pressure that society and young people made in social media. If not, we will still be on the same place. And well, another thing is that they completely ignored how censorship could be used as a political tool, which was mentioned by the second speaker of my side of the house, which is why this point clearly falls to our side of the house. And now I will move on to the third point, and thank you, that is called censorship. In this case, first of all, the first speaker of the proposition said, and I quote, we are fighting fire with more fire. And well, actually, considering these images could be censoring these images, could be considered to add more oppression towards this oppression. Why? Well, basically because it would reduce the media coverage greatly, and thus all minorities, such as the Black community, will not have enough representation of this pressing issue that Team Proposition is completely disregarding. Then they also mentioned how social media will increase the violence because it normalizes the brutality. First of all, let me clarify that normalizing is completely different from visibilizing. And in second place, if things are not shown in social media, then society will start to think they are normal because they are not being talked about. And thus, without images, that will lead to a certain point of normalization, not the other way. Then they mentioned how false information would be spread within these images, and that's why they should censor them. But to which we have two main things to say. First of all, fake information can happen in all sorts of places, within text, within images, so that does not lead the case to only images. And in second place, images are a visual representation of reality, while texts can be completely modified towards a certain belief. And then they also mentioned how after George Floyd, there were many other police brutality cases. To which I would like to say, first of all, that in 2019, there were 1,100 cases, and in 2020, there were 950. So there was a slight decrease. And also, the fact that team proposition thinks that proves that images actually visibilize this issue, because the decrease was not huge. Yet, however, team proposition believes that there were many more cases because they were visibilized. But before, they still happened, and they were not shown in the social media. This is why this point also falls to our side of the house. So please remember, one image is worth 1,000 words, which is just enough to put a light to this present issue. Thank you.
We thank the speaker for the speech. The time was 8 minutes, 22 seconds. We would now like to call on the reply speaker from the side of the opposition to deliver their speech. Please welcome them again.
Am I audible? Perfect. The reason why Team Proposition lost this debate is because they're in favor of systemic oppression, inequalities, and discrimination. That's the single reason why they lost. So I will divide my speech in three main points and in three main questions from an objective point of view. First, how can we solve police brutality? Second, what happens to individuals? And third, what happens to institutions? Starting with our first question, how do we solve police brutality? From their side of the house, we hear this idea that the police should be the ones to decide who is going to jail and who is not. And that's a quote from the third speaker. And they take the police force, the oppressor of the situation, as a minority, as an oppressed minority. This is not true. If you're an oppressor, if you're the police, a systemic oppressor, then you're not a minority, then you're not an oppressor. They also say that there are isolated cases, and let me answer with three main things. First of all, they're not isolated cases. They are a system. These sequences of cases of thousands and thousands of systemic oppressions are a system in which police brutality thrives. And this is not only about deaths. This is always about different kinds of abuse of power, which we already mentioned, and they didn't reply. Second, we said that we solve police brutality by the social pressure that these images create, therefore leading to political change, solving the systemic oppression from police brutality, and we explained how all of that is positive. Since we did all of that chain of logic, and that chain of logic is actually true, with political pressure, you create political change, and political pressure is created by images, then this question of how do we solve police brutality is answered by our side of the house, and we win this question. Moving on to the second question, what happens to individuals? They start talking about underage children, their psychology, this culture of fear where they kept mentioning, and the fact that fake news exists. What do we answer? Three main things. First of all, we said that this culture of fear is not a misinterpretation. It's not something fake, it's a reality. If people are killed in the streets by policemen, then that is not something fake. That is something that actually happens, and people should be aware of that. Therefore, the fake news postulate and the culture of fear postulate already follow. Second, we talked about how children are likely not to see this content, especially younger children, with which they were so worried about. And even if they do see this, they're not likely to copy it. It's very unlikely that a 6-year-old goes out and kills a person just because they saw it on TikTok. And moving on to the third answer, what happens to individuals in our side of the house? We tell you that individuals are moved, create empathy throughout photos then that is positive because you actually create change in the social movement. You actually create change towards police brutality, and that is something positive. That's what we explained for our side of the house, and it stood therefore the second question: what happens to individuals fall to our side of the house? Starting with the third question: what happens to institutions? From our side of the house, you heard this idea that you heard that it is a reality. It's not just culture of fear. It actually happens. Second, it's actually censorship, limiting images. It's institutional censorship, which is an abuse of power from states. And third, if we use censorship as a mean, we're inviting authoritarian governments and any government actually with a police force to oppress its citizens. If there's oppressed community and we continue to ignore it, we keep ignoring them and we keep stirring the images away from them, then we are inviting the state to continue to oppress them and to do this efficiently and discreetly. From their side of the house, they said nothing. They did not talk about political change. They did not talk about censorship. They did not talk about abusive power. And that's why the third question, what happens to institutions, falls to our side. All of three of our premises were stood throughout this debate. You had argumentation from our side, and you had no valid response from their side of the house. Therefore, we cast enough reasonable doubt as for this motion to fall to our side. So let me remind you for one last time. One image is worth 1,000 words, which is just enough to put a light on this pressing issue. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Speaker, for closing the case. For the side of the opposition, the time was 4 minutes, 12 seconds. Now, to close the case for the side of the proposition and close the debate, we invite the second speaker from the side of the government to deliver the speech. Please welcome Nicanor Poshagi once again.
Because we believe that images of police brutality should not be shown in the media, we remain proudly in favor of today's motion. So what have we seen throughout this debate? Firstly, there was clearly some miscommunication between both teams in this debate. Team Proposition defined the media as only social media, setting clear boundaries for the debate, which the opposition did not adjust to. Secondly, Team Proposition is not endorsing censorship. Please let us remind you that we are talking about images of dead people, which go against the user's guidelines. Therefore, this is not censorship. This is society protection. And that Team Proposition never said that police brutality is not a real issue and all fake news, but that the internet being riddled with these cannot be a reliable source. As for our first point of clash was whether media coverage had an impact on users. This begs the question whether social media has a negative impact. And let us tell you that the answer is yes. The first speaker of the proposition made an essential remark as regards how showing these images instill what is referred as fear of culture, inciting fear in citizens through emotional bias, aka psychological manipulation. By doing so, we are producing psychological damage to users of all walks of life, who may will suffer from stress, anxiety, depression, and get overwhelmed by these images shown on applications meant for sole entertainment, where a myriad of youngsters get easily influenced, which an international psychological institute stated. Social media is not the place. Upon analyzing what was mentioned, it is evident that the point should go to the proposition, who have most definitely proven that the inherently bad nature of showing police brutality, violation of human rights on social media is not okay. This is not social awareness, Team Opposition. This is a violent and explicit showcasing. Team Opposition rightly claimed that images show the truth. But what happens when the reality is astonishingly shocking? Should this be shown? We think not. A further key point was political change, something which Team Proposition has again proven that does not happen while showing images of police brutality. The alarming presence of fake news online who spread false information and the relation to police brutality, coupled with the hatred to policemen, the disregards, and the exacerbated issues, we can say that political change is nowhere to be found. George Floyd clearly illustrated our point. He was shown, images were spread, and still even more murders were committed. Apart from this, we cannot assure that the guilty party was rightfully accused. Minorities who identified only suffered even more with sadness over them. This is not awareness, this is psychological damage. Team Proposition is not saying that we should not raise awareness of this issue, but that social media is not the place. This house believes that the media should not show images of police brutality in that it only makes our situation worse. Just like the opposition wanted us to prove, we show that more oppression comes from this coverage. Influence, riots, and mental health matters. We are not being discriminatory nor authoritarian. Far from it. We are not censoring, something which goes against the user guidelines. We are protecting users and minorities. This was also a point of clash which should go to the proposition. As you can appreciate, going back to the burden of proof of team opposition, we have indeed again proven that one, the media is not the place to show this. Two, this brings more oppression with riots, protests, and even more deaths and hatred to policemen, which team opposition agreed with, saying, and I quote, police are the oppressors, which again is a clear example of this phenomenon. Not every policeman is an oppressor, and we are putting everyone in the same basket. And lastly, yet most importantly, the media has a negative impersonal impact. Let's once and for all, as team opposition said, stop turning a blind eye to the negative aspects of showcasing, of not raising awareness about police brutality. Team opposition endorses more oppression with media influence. Because let's not forget that one image of death and bloodshed is worth 1,000 mental health issues, which is enough to encourage even more destruction, and that the motion had nothing to do with finding a solution. This debate should go to the proposition team. The opposition did not cast enough doubt on our case. It is not at all clear how much the media influences our opinion and how much public opinion influences the media. Thank you so much. This is why the motion should and will stand.
Thank you very much, Speaker. The time was 4 minutes, 12 seconds. Now, judges will be sent into a delivering room so that they can discuss what has happened in this debate, and afterwards they'll come back to inform us of their decisions and deliver the briefing. So now judges will be proceeded to be moved to another room. But the show will go on. Excellent. So the judges have now been moved to the other room.
It was a great debate for team proposition. I really enjoyed it.
Yes. Congrats.
Congratulations.
Thank you too.
Congratulations to both teams. Firstly, for having made it all the way here, preparing for the prepared motions, impromptu motions. You did it all. National final. You must have been super nervous, but you did a great job. It was a very enjoyable debate. So congratulations both teams for first having made it all the way here, and second, delivering a great pitch and debate worth of a national final. And I'm sure the viewers on YouTube from all around the world will agree with this. It was a pleasure to be your chairperson, and I'm really looking forward to see what the judges thought of the debate and how it went down. So let me remind the audience on YouTube, those who are just joining us, you'll get the chance to watch what was a brilliant debate. You can just scroll back. But let me remind you that we have on side proposition on team government. We have Colegio Manuel Belgrano. On side opposition, we've got St. Catherine's Belgrano. They just debated the motion. This house believes that images of police brutality should not be shown on media, or something like that. This house believes that media should not show images of police brutality. That's the exact wording. Yeah, a lot of concepts on this motion. But it was definitely a very interesting round to watch, and we had an international panel judging this round, and you'll get to hear from them and get personal feedback, hopefully. We had judges from all around the world, and I'll go back to say their names and say where they were from, because it's a true pleasure to have them here, and we must acknowledge their presence in this round. We had Gabriel Guia, located in Brazil. We got Nijuna Macharia, located in Nairobi, Kenya. We had Paula Djakovic, located in Zagreb, Croatia. We had Chris Jin from Singapore, located in Hong Kong, and we got Paz Casinetti, located in the United States. So let me remind you that after the briefing, we'll get the prize giving ceremony, in which top speakers from both tournaments, from both categories, juniors and seniors, will be given awards, individual awards for speaker points. That will happen soon after, right after, I'm going to say, right after the decision is given. So please stay for that, and please stay here to congratulate the speakers that made an excellent job during this year of online debating.
Ian, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Great. Well, we are going to start with the prize giving ceremony for individual speakers before we get the final results and we can advance with regional champions. So I am going to admit the people who are in the waiting room. Remember that teams, coaches, and parents or anybody who wants to follow the prize giving ceremony can do so via YouTube. The only people who are coming in the Zoom there. The only people who are coming in the Zoom should be the debaters who are going to be given the prize, yes? Coaches, we kindly ask you to please follow the ceremony via the YouTube channel so that we can disconcentrate people from here. Well, so while we wait for the judges' deliberation, I am going to share my screen. Good, so can you all see my screen?
Yes.
Great. Just give me 1 second. Gabriel, sorry, we are sending you now. Again, I don't know what happened. In fact, it looks like he's already there. Gabriel, are you here? Gabriel is a judge from Brazil.
Yeah, I think he's been moved.
Yeah, I think he's already
Great.
gone. So. Now we are ready. I kindly ask everybody, when we name you, we would need if you can please turn on your microphones so that you can appear in the picture, because we are a lot of people here. So when we say your names, you can say thank you, or I'm here, or something, opening your microphones, okay? So we are going to start with the best speakers of the Acorn Cup for this year. While we say the speakers, I kindly ask you to please remain muted, okay? Unless you are the speaker we are naming. I see some people opening microphones. Please do not open your microphones unless we name you, so that we don't overlap, okay? Good, so in the 10th place for best speakers of the Acorn Cup 2021, we have Goran Setovic from All Saints School. Are you there? I I think, yes, maybe some of you are in the same room, so please be careful with very big sounds. Goran, I see you there. We all see you here. Don't worry. Great. Congratulations. In the 9th place for the Acorn Cup, we have Renata Borsani from Quilmes High School.
Yes, thank you.
Great. There we see you. In the 8th place, we have 3 people. Clara Humphreys from St. Catherine's Moreland School, Belgrano, Emilia Fidel from Colegio Isei, and Ian Stupnik from Colegio Tarbut. Congratulations. You can
Thank
all
you
open
so
your
much.
microphones.
Thank
you.
Great. In the 7th place, we have Alexia Waldman from Beats Grammar School, Juan Migens from Beats Grammar School, Santiago Pérez Junqueira from Colegio Champagnat, and Solana Garber from All Saints School. If any of you is there, please open your microphones.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Great.
Thank you.
Congratulations. In the 6th place, we have Pilar Masuki from Colegio Patris.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Congratulations. In the 5th place, we have Amparo Lana from Colegio San Jorge Godoy Cruz.
Thank you.
Great. In the 4th place, we have Juan Filoy from Southern International School.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Congratulations. And thank you for the people who are clapping. In the 3rd place, we have Ines Clopet from St. Catherine's Moreland School, Belgrano.
Thank you very much.
In the 2nd place, we have Ángeles Vermicelli from Colegio North Hills and Jeremías Di Martino from Colegio North Hills.
Thank you.
Great, I see you're there. Excellent. And in the 1st place for the best speakers of the Acorn Cup 2021, we have Margarita Spinelli from Holy Mary of the Northern Hills School.
Thank you so much.
Congratulations. Excellent. Everybody, please remember that we will send all digital certificates to your schools once the grand finals are over in these weeks that come, so that all of you will get your digital award, okay? And now we go to the best speakers of the Oak Cup 2021. The same applies. Please make sure that you open your microphone and say something. You can say thank you, but you can say whatever else you want so that you appear on camera. And please be reminded that anybody who wants to follow the transmission can do so via our YouTube channel. Everybody who is not a debater should leave the Zoom and join the YouTube channel, please. So we are going to start. In the 10th place for the Oak Cup 2021, we have Lucila Banet Sang from Colegio Tarbut and Santina Gatti from Colegio Portezuelo.
Thank you.
Great. In the 9th place, we have Catalina Diaz from Colegio San Jorge Godoy Cruz and Nicole Michane from Colegio Tarbut.
Thank you.
Great. In the 8th place, we have Felix Premro from St. Catherine's Moreland School, Belgrano.
Thank you.
In the 7th place, we have Agustina Sala from Oxford High School and Ignacio Gieso from St. Mary of the Hills School, San Fernando. There we see some of you. Great. In the 6th place, we have Mia Karlstein from Southern Cross School.
Thank you.
In the 5th place, we have Emilia Maceo Boscato from Midlands College. In the 4th place, we have Sofia De Bernardi from Oxford High School.
Thank you.
In the third place, we have Santiago Gomez from Belgrano Day School. In the second place, we have Nicanor Pogaji from Colegio Manuel Belgrano.
Thank you.
And in the first place, for the Oak Cup 2021, we have Daniela del Castillo from St. Nicholas School. Great, so congratulations to everybody. The same as before, we are going to send digital certificates to your schools or your coaches. So you will receive them shortly these days. And now, while we wait for the judges' deliberation to finish and know who the champion is for the Oak Cup 2021, we are going to give a prize for the national team 2021. This team represented Argentina in WSDC, that is the World's Schools Debating Championship in Macau. The tournament was a virtual tournament. It lasted around 7 days. And they debated against a lot of schools. I see a lot of countries, sorry. I see a lot of you here connected. So I am going to ask you to please share some comments about your experience. But before that, we are going to name you. The team was formed by Felix Premrow from St. Catherine's Moreland School, Belgrano, Lucila Banet Sang from Colegio Tarbut, Malena Saraví from St. Mary of the Hills School, San Fernando, Mia Carlstein from Southern Cross School, and Santina Gatti from Colegio Portezuelo. Great congratulations to all of you for an amazing tournament and for representing our country. If any of you is over there and would like to share your comments, any part of your experience with the rest of the debaters who are in the Zoom and with the people who are following via YouTube, we would really appreciate that.
I think I speak for all of us when we say that we are very grateful for the experience. And we also want to give out a big thank you to the coaches for preparing us for such an intense event. And we learned a lot and we had a lot of fun and we made a lot of new friends, and it was very interesting to debate against different countries and knowing different people from different cultures. So thank you, Ada, for the amazing experience.
Yeah, I mean, I was, I think, 2.5 months of the most intense part of what my life would be. We had Zooms almost every time, but I never had that as a negative thing. I always thought that as long as we were doing it with, I mean, people that I was getting to know and now are my friends and learning something that we all clearly loved and getting to go to the WSCC, which ended up being one of the best experiences in my life, I think was an amazing experience overall. And I super recommend it if you ever have the opportunity one day to do it.
It was amazing how we clicked as a team. Like we really worked really well together, and it was very fun also. Apart from being very intense and very like educative, we learned a lot of things. But it was also like a very experience for like learning skills from other debaters and from like the team itself and from other debaters from other countries. A lot of different styles, a lot of different forms of expression, structures for the speech. It was like really, really like. It was a very enriching experience, and I'm very grateful for it.
Yeah, I'm also really happy because now this team, I probably call them my friends. And from the myriad of hours that we spent together, like making cases that were unimaginably hard from space commercialization. So, and I also I'm really grateful for this opportunity because I got to go to Buenos Aires and I met them in person and they are great persons. And also I'm grateful for the coaches because yeah, they spent so many hours with us preparing the cases and preparing how we would have our strategy and how we will go against Canada and many really difficult countries. So all in all, it was a really enriching experience, and I'm really grateful for both the organization and for my team.
Yeah, mostly that. It was a great experience for me and I guess the team as well, as they mentioned. Also, great thanks to the coaches, which helped us a lot. It was a lot of hard work personally for us, but the coaches did double of the work. too, helping us and guiding us. So I'm very thankful for the whole experience and to them. So yeah, it was really fun and a lot of new experiences that we went through. So, yeah.
It's great to hear from you, to hear your experiences, your thoughts. I mean, I got to know you all, and I can say that it was, and I got to be there with you, and I can say it was an incredible process. You grew a lot, and it was, let's say, the cherry for all the effort you've made. And to all debaters here, juniors, seniors, keep trying. I know debate can be I don't know, sometimes be hard. Sometimes we have to work a lot, be on Zoom sometimes, even though we would like to stay away from our computer and be doing something else. But it's truly a life-changing activity. Even now, as a high school graduate, I'm still in touch, still involved, because this community is something different. You get to meet people that are similar but different to you, and it's great to connect with them. You stay friends with them for a long time. You meet excellent coaches, judges. I mean, to juniors, keep doing it, keep pushing, keep trying. It helps you overcome a lot of things and helps you in uncountable ways. I would probably spend, I could talk about the benefits of debate for a long time, but seniors, juniors, keep trying, keep debating. You're doing a great job. You're doing an amazing activity, and yes, keep the efforts up. You're doing great, and hopefully you'll get to share your thoughts on WSEC like they are right now in a couple of years or maybe less. So thank you everyone for being here today. We really appreciate it. And with no further ado,
we are ready.
our judges are back. Judges, the floor is yours.
So for the judges briefing, we ask everybody who was not a debater in this round to please turn off your cameras so that on the YouTube transmission, we only see debaters and judges. Thank you. And Ian, of course. Great, so the judges are back. We kindly invite a member of the panel to give the briefing.
Do I do the announcement as well? Because the feedback will...
Yes.
Okay, all right. So I just wanted to thank the teams for a wonderful, wonderful debate. I think one of the wonderful things about, the COVID pandemic, as few wonderful things there are about it, is that, Zoom debates have now become the norm. And it means that people like us from all over the world get to chime in and sort of observe all these wonderful rounds. So yeah, I think it was a high quality round. All the speakers were really, really impressive. It's really nice, obviously, as well to take a look at, see what debate is like on the other side of the world, because, I'm more than 12 hours difference in time zones from you guys, I think. Okay, without further ado, what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you the call and I'll sort of briefly explain the reasons for it. And so on a unanimous decision, we decided to give this debate to side opposition. So congratulations to side op, commiserations to side proposition. So for us, the main reasons are that we think that opposition, first of all, was able to outmaneuver side proposition on, well, most of the core points that we think were relevant in this debate. Second of all, we think that side proposition was not as responsive or as engaging as side opposition was. And yes, we understand that in a debate, normally the burden of clash is on opposition, but for you to not engage at all with opposition's material and for you to basically try to refute everything through bare assertion is not really going to be conducive to you doing particularly well in a debate round. So if we want to break it down more specifically into things that we sort of came up in this debate, right? So the first thing that we got from Proposition was the main plank of their case, revolved around the idea of culture of fear and the creation of this culture of fear. And then linked to this was a lot of the analysis that we got from Prob was aimed at making this argument work, right? So the analysis on how children are specifically susceptible to social media, the idea about trying to limit the context to social media, all the analysis on depression and anxiety and the effects of those and how those are bad, and linking those to this culture of fear. I think several problems with this argument, right? Like, first of all, we're not necessarily like clear in terms of like how the culture of fear should weigh against, the actual impacts of police brutality on minorities or on people generally, right? In terms of how we think that symmetrically, anybody who's a victim of these types of child abuse cases, these types of police brutality cases are also going to be susceptible to the mental health concerns that are raised by Prop Bench. But more specifically, we think that, when opposition come up and tell us that, we think that in some circumstances, when police are brutalizing minorities, it's probably a good idea that there is some degree of a culture of fear against police officers. We think that, we think that this is an argument that proposition needs to engage with. And when they don't, we think that, this argument essentially is capable of being flipped by opposition. And then also the stuff about trying to limit the context of the debate to a social media context. We don't think that this was valid. We think that the wording of the motion is quite clear that it is about media. We understand strategically why proposition was trying to do this in terms of trying to say that, in the context of social media specifically, there is a wider propensity for fake news. There's a wider propensity specifically for children to engage with these types of narratives that they might not necessarily be able to do in print media. But we think that the fact that you're able to concede that we can still have images produced on print media, or at least not talking about that in the context of this debate and leaving that question open, potentially undercuts a lot of the points that you want to raise here in terms of isolating people from these cultures of shock and horror and all these types of things. Okay, we think that the way you should look at this is this. If you're trying to talk about how this culture of fear is something that we specifically don't want to inculcate in children, we think that when side opposition come up and give us some forms of mechanisms that can mitigate the harms that you want to talk about in terms of how you can have content law, about how children can develop their own sense of morality, we think that implicitly, okay, even if they don't explain to us how children can independently develop these types of moral codes, we think that this type of assertion is sufficient to counteract your assertion about children being susceptible to absorbing information like a sponge. We think that further, the idea about content locks and parental controls are probably definitely a mechanism that can sort of exist without the necessity of any type of characterization that can deal with the problem of this culture of fear within children. In the context of adults and like a wider societal impact of culture of fear, firstly, we don't really think that your argument was in any way sort of going in that direction. We think the intention of the argument was quite it was mostly limited to the context of children. But even if your argument were to go that far, we think that that is undercut to the extent that you leave open the question of there being a possibility of having these images posted on print media. And we think that that really was the main crux of what you guys wanted to talk about. I mean, to the extent that you're talking about how that there are some police officers that are innocent, and then the idea about, and it was quite stylistically put, the idea that, there are some police officers who are perfectly innocent, and then they end up being sort of targeted by people unjustly. Well, I think that when Op is able to come up and characterize the problem as being one that is systematic and explain to us that, I mean, even if they don't explain to us exactly how it's systematic, the assertion that it is a systematic, and for us, when you look at what happened in the George Taylor situation, right? When, even though there was only one officer who had his who had his knee on the throat of the victim, how there were obviously other police officers who were standing nearby, not doing anything about it. The fact that I think, the average reasonable voter would know that a lot of the assertions about police brutality these days is that it is systematic. Faced with that characterization, I needed some degree of engagement with that idea. The extent that you don't is the extent that we're able to generously credit opposition on some characterizations that might not necessarily fly if they were challenged. But if you don't challenge it beyond just asserting, no, our characterization is correct, that is not a challenge. That is just a counter assertion, and that is not comparative. And on the engagement point, it really becomes a matter of last shot fired becomes the more persuasive shot. Even if we don't deal with this stuff about police minority and police brutality, I think there are other things as well that were mentioned that we think were quite useful. So on the idea of solving police brutality, right? Because we think that as soon as opposition is able to show to us that there are at least some mechanisms that could lead towards solving police brutality, immediately the impacts that they have become a lot stronger. because a lot of the impacts that you want to talk about sort of are contingent on continued portrayal of police brutality. If police brutality is solved, there will no longer need to be any images of police brutality being shared. And therefore, all the impacts that you want to talk about that are harmful are ended. And it's in this sense that solvency on police brutality becomes a live issue, if not the most important issue in this debate. So for you to say that we don't need to solve police brutality, no, it just doesn't work in the context of this debate. We think that even if side opposition cannot show us that the George Floyd flashpoint incident conclusively solved the issue of police brutality, we think that as long as they're able to give us some mechanisms that can lead towards solvency, there is already enough. And they do give us some idea that the numbers seem to be going down. And we think that even if they couldn't provide solvency, there was another fringe impact in terms of how minorities are better able to understand and track what's happening to them, and sort of, I suppose, better mobilize and sort of unite and ask for political action. And even if that in itself, sorry, is there a problem? This is the last thing really. But I think the point was that even if solvency wasn't proven, we thought that was another fringe impact. That was another impact that was creditable to opposition, that in the eyes of some of the members of the panel was also particularly credible and impactful in the context of the debate. So I think in a nutshell, those were the issues, and that's the way we resolved them. And those are the reasons for the call. Are there any questions so far? Yeah. Do I hand it back to the organizers? I mean, obviously, I also want to thank the panel. I mean, we had a really lovely discussion about the debate. Yeah, Paula, Paz, Gabrielle, Macharia. Yeah. Did I get everybody? I think so.
Thank you, Chris, as well, and congratulations to both teams.
Thank you very much, panel, for what was and thank you very much, Chris, for what was a world-class feedback. Thank you very much to all 5 judges for being here with us today. It was a great pleasure. Yeah, the feedback is really going to help debaters in the future, and all of us who got to hear it and how to engage in future rounds. So thank you very much from the bottom of my heart and from the organization for being here today with us and for the tremendous work you've done to help improve debaters and the national circuit. So that being said, members of the panel, you are allowed to leave and exit the room. Thank you very much for being here with us today, and we hope to see you in future tournaments and rounds.
Thanks. May I have the email of some of the judges in order to receive a feedback?
Yeah, I mean.
Yes.
Absolutely.
I'm okay with that. Yeah.
If judges wish to share their emails in the chat, if not, I can just share them privately with debaters once the round is over, like you prefer.
I think you can share mine. You probably already have it.
Great.
Yeah, I think you can share, but do you mind CCing another adult into the email chain just so it's for safety reasons?
Yes, of course.
Yeah. Thank you.
So please, all those that are in the Zoom right now that were not members of the panel, please stay, because now I'll give the floor to Male, which has some announcements.
So here we have a lot of people apart from the debaters of the final, and we encourage that you stay for the prize giving ceremony of the regional champions. If you want, you can also follow the ceremony and what's left of it by our YouTube channel. We are transmitting now. And if you are in the YouTube channel and you are a regional champion, then of course you're welcome to join the Zoom for the announcement. Chris, are you there? Yes, so before we move on to announcing the champions, we welcome Cristina Massa, the president of the Argentine Debating Association, to please give us some words of closure.
Thank you very much. Well, my hearty congratulations to all debaters and the champions as well. St. Catherine's champion, Acorn Cup, OCAP. Well done, people. Very proud of you too, really. Honestly, my intention today is just to express my gratitude to so many people, and some in particular, because without them, this we are living today would have been impossible. Even the whole tournament, the virtual tournament for the past 2 years. And that is why my words of gratitude go to Ignacio Cortines Furfaro, Malena Schneider, Vicky Lapadula, because without them, nobody would have been able to organize these events so wonderfully. So thank you, thank you, thank you very much. On the other hand, today, thank you very much, Ian, Juan Pablo Larribey earlier, and Eileen Mateos, always helping us, because these are people that perhaps are not well known by everybody, but they silently work for this organization to go on growing and having teams representing Argentina elsewhere in the world, as it happened this year with the Spanish tournament where Argentina became champion, the Worlds in Macau, previously mentioned by Malena. So I would also like to mention the other members of the executive committee that, I mean, we are all people that perhaps we never show, but we do our work as well. Mary Mendionde, Cristina Adriani, Delfina Vildósola, Patricia Urbieta. Thank you, people. Thank you very, very much. And also Delfina and Alejo González Virgili, because they are in charge of the tabbing, which is a lot of work. And they are people that perhaps never appear, but they do a lot for all of us. So this is our 25th anniversary. We have been running as ADA for 25 years. And so far, I myself and Cristina Adriani, co-founder of ADA, is still running and helping and pushing for this organization to keep on growing. So thank you very much to all the schools, the member schools, their heads, their coaches, and judges. Thanks so much, because we have judges that are previously been debaters, independent judges. We wouldn't be able to hold debates without them. Thank you very, very much. And congratulations to everybody. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris.
Welcome.
And now we are going to advance with the regional champions of this year. I am going to share my screen again. Remember, if you are watching the live transmission in YouTube, we have a lot of people there, but you are a regional champion, then you are invited to join the Zoom so that we can have you here and you can appear on camera. If you are friends or family or coaches of the debaters, you can follow it via YouTube. So I am going to share my screen. Ian, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Awesome. So if you can please confirm when you see it.
We can all now see your screen.
Great, great. So we are going to start. I will announce, but you already know it. I will announce the regional champion for each region. And then I ask, like before, if everybody is here or if one representative of the team is here, please open your microphones and say thank you or move your hands or something so that everybody can see you and the camera goes to you. So for the regional champions of the Acorn Cup 2021, in the Mendoza region, we have Colegio del Carmen. Congratulations. I see we have one of the coaches here. If we have any debaters and you want to say something, of course, you're welcome.
My camera is not working. I'm sorry, but thank you very much.
Don't worry. You're welcome. For Mar del Plata region, the champion of the Acorn Cup is Holy Mary of the Northern Hills School.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
I see you there. Congratulations. And for Buenos Aires region, the champion is St. Catherine's Moreland School, Belgrano.
Yeah.
Thank you. There you go. And now we are going to announce the regional champions of the Oak Cup 2021. For Mendoza region, we have Colegio San Jorge Godoy Cruz.
Thank you.
Congratulations. For Mar del Plata, we have Holy Trinity College.
Thank you.
There we see. For Córdoba, we have Deutsche Schule.
Hi. So I would like to
There we
thank you
see.
for this opportunity. Thank you so much. I would like to congratulate everyone who has participated in this debate. Thank you, ATA, for having us another year. So I really hope we can continue working and learning together the following years. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Sofia. Thanks for your words. And for Buenos Aires region, we have St. Catherine's Moreland School, Belgrano.
Thank you so much for this amazing opportunity.
Yeah, thanks so much.
Thank you for your words. And now we are going to announce the national champions of the Acorn Cup 2021 and the Oak Cup 2021. So the national champion for this year Acorn Cup, the runner-up is Colegio del Carmen. I think we had some people here. Congratulations, the final was amazing. Everybody can watch the final again in our YouTube channel. It's already uploaded. We transmitted it live today in the morning at the first hour. And the champion is St. Catherine's Moreland School, Belgrano.
Dale.
Thank you. Thank you. Congratulations. The final was a very, very interesting debate, so I invite everybody to watch it on our YouTube channel. And now for the Oak Cup 2021, the runner-up is Colegio Manuel Belgrano. I think we still have some of you guys here.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Congratulations, it was an excellent debate. You can also see it in our YouTube channel, and you have the feedback of the international panel that we had. And the champion of the 2021 Oak Cup is St. Catherine's Moreland School, Belgrano. Congratulations.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Great, great. It's great that everybody stayed for this part. And now, on behalf of ADA, I will stop sharing my screen. We thank you once again for participating in this year's circuit. We really appreciate that you followed us today via YouTube or here in Zoom. We know we have people in a lot of places here in Argentina and also abroad who are watching the ceremony and who have followed the debate. So we thank all of you. And on behalf of ADA, we wish you a restful holiday, a restful summer holiday, and we wish to see everybody back soon next year. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.
See you.